You wake up and immediately feel behind. You step into the day already second-guessing yourself. You look in the mirror and see a man chasing something he doesn't fully believe he deserves. You walk into rooms with big ideas, but small confidence. You talk about success, but deep down, you don't feel like it belongs to you. And no matter how much you achieve, no matter how many people praise you, no matter how high you climb, there's still that quiet voice whispering that you're a fraud, that you don't belong, that it's only a matter of time before they all find out. That's not humility. That's not realism. That's the prison of imposter syndrome. And it's killing everything you've worked for from the inside out. You don't talk about it. You cover it with achievements, with effort, with perfection. But you feel it. You feel it every time you hesitate to speak. Every time you avoid opportunities. Every time you shrink yourself so no one expects more. You play safe because you fear exposure. Not just exposure of flaws, but exposure of truth. That somewhere inside, you still believe you're not enough. But I, Napoleon Hill, told you clearly, you are not what you feel. You are what you do, and if you keep operating by feelings, you will live below your power for the rest of your life. The man ruled by imposter syndrome doesn't need more success. He needs to upgrade his standards. Low standards don't just sabotage progress, they shape your identity. And when your internal standard is rooted in fear, you will reject the very success you claim to want. You'll sabotage relationships, delay decisions, overthink execution, and call it preparation. But it's not preparation, it's paralysis. The paralysis of a man who's been lying to himself for too long, telling himself he's not ready, telling himself he needs more, telling himself that real power belongs to others. That's not humility. That's cowardice in disguise. That's comfort pretending to be caution. And if you don't destroy it, it will destroy you. Imposter syndrome isn't something you outgrow, it's something you outfight. It doesn't fade with time. It's killed with action. Action rooted in high standards. Standards that say, I show up fully even when I don't feel ready. I speak power even when I doubt. I move fast even when I'm scared. Because the man I want to be isn't on the other side of comfort, he's on the other side of fire, and that fire is lit when you stop negotiating with fear. Ask yourself, how many opportunities have you rejected, not because you couldn't handle them, but because you didn't think you deserved them? How many times have you dimmed your light so others wouldn't feel insecure? How many times have you over-prepared for something you were already qualified for, just so you wouldn't be exposed? That's imposter syndrome, and it's not some random feeling, it's a result. A result of years of running instead of rising, years of conforming instead of confronting, years of low standards disguised as strategy. But here's the truth, you were not born with imposter syndrome, you were taught it. Conditioned to feel small, programmed to believe that your worth was dependent on how others saw you. And now it's time to delete that program. Not with affirmations, with action. You don't fix internal fear with external approval. You fix it by building a new internal standard. A standard that says, I show up whether they clap or not. I speak whether they agree or not. I execute whether I'm validated or not. That's how you kill the lie. That's how you silence the voice. That's how you build a version of you that can't be shaken by opinion or delay. I've said it before and I'll say it again. You become what you repeatedly do, not what you say, not what you plan, not what you hope, what you do. And if you keep acting like a man who's afraid to be seen, you'll never become the man who owns the room. You don't fake confidence, you build it. And you build it by acting against the very fear that says you shouldn't. Every day, every hour, every second that matters. So what does that look like? It looks like speaking when your voice shakes. It looks like leading when your legs tremble. It looks like deciding when your mind screams to delay, because those are the moments that rewrite your identity. And the more you choose power in the face of fear, the more that fear starts to fade, not because it disappears, but because it knows it no longer has control. That's the transformation. That's the shift. That's the rise. And you don't rise by avoiding, you rise by attacking. You take the very area where you feel like a fraud and you master it. You train, you execute, you review, you correct, you repeat, until you become so dominant that imposter syndrome no longer fits you. It's too small, too weak, too disconnected from the new standard you've built. And when that standard is set in stone, no one can pull you back. Not critics, not failures, not even your old self. Because now you lead. Now you speak with clarity. Now you move with force. Now you build without apology. And the world takes notice. Not because you shouted, but because you showed up, fully, consistently, boldly. That's how you kill the imposter. You starve him, you silence him, you outwork him, and you do it every single day, no matter how you feel. So now, right now, decide. What part of your life has been infected by low standards? Where have you been shrinking instead of standing? Where have you let fear control your expression, your ambition, your execution? Name it. Face it and kill it with action, not tomorrow. Now, and when you move, when you take that first bold step, come back and comment below. Let the world see a man who didn't just hear the truth, but acted on it. Declare your attack. Declare your standard. And if this message hit you harder than anything you've heard this year, share it. Send it to a man who's playing small, a man who talks big but hesitates in the dark. Be the push he needs to rise. Then like this video, not because it's popular, but because it's powerful. Because it reminded you that your standard is your responsibility, and now you're ready to raise it. And finally, subscribe, because here we don't wait for confidence, we build it. We don't study power, we become it. Through the fire of Napoleon Hill's truths, delivered with precision, purpose, and the force of a man who's done being average. This is the beginning of the end for every lie you believed about yourself. You're not an imposter. You're not a fraud. You're just undertrained. And now you train, now you act. Now you rise, you keep showing up, but inside, you're still hiding. You walk into the room with your head high, but your thoughts are low. You speak with strength, but your heart is whispering doubt. You build, you create, you lead, but it never feels like enough. No matter what you do, that voice still finds a way to creep back in and tell you you're not real, that this is all temporary, that any second now, someone's going to pull back the curtain and expose you for the fraud you think you are. That's not just fear, that's the grip of imposter syndrome, and it's costing you more than you can see. It's not just keeping you from rising, it's eroding your ability to even believe you deserve to rise. And that, more than anything, is why you feel stuck. You're not just delaying action, you're living in quiet self-rejection, and it's subtle. That's why it stays alive. Because you're successful on the surface, people see your wins, they see your progress, they see the highlights, but they don't see the internal war, the constant overthinking, the need to triple-check, the avoidance of credit, the minimization of your own achievements, and worst of all, the self-sabotage that no one can trace. You make it look like you're just being careful, like you're being humble, like you're being strategic. But the truth is, you're afraid to step fully into your own power, because deep down, you're not sure you belong there. And that lie is ruining your ability to dominate. But here's the truth I, Napoleon Hill, burned into every word I ever spoke. Your results don't lie. Your actions don't lie. Your discipline doesn't lie. What you do consistently is who you are. And if you've shown up, executed, delivered, built, led, then it doesn't matter what your feelings say. You are not an imposter. You are simply untrained in how to lead your emotions. You've mastered the work, but you've neglected the mind. You've become good at doing, but bad at believing. And now, it's time to fix that. Not with more compliments, not with validation, with command. Command over your focus, command over your identity, command over your internal standard. You want to destroy imposter syndrome? Stop playing defense. Stop trying to manage the fear. Stop trying to make it go away. Instead, overpower it. Drown it in clarity. Silence it with execution. Make it irrelevant by becoming undeniable. That happens when you raise your standards so high that the old doubts can't survive. When you show up so powerfully that fear can't get a word in. When you build so relentlessly that second-guessing can't keep up. Because imposter syndrome doesn't live in the minds of the focused. It lives in the minds of the distracted. And distraction is a choice. That's the part you need to confront. You are choosing to stay in the loop. Every time you delay action until you feel confident, every time you overthink instead of decide, every time you shrink in the name of humility, you're choosing the loop. You're choosing the prison. You're choosing to live below your edge, and the longer you stay there, the more real it feels. But it's not real, it's just rehearsed. You've rehearsed the language of fear for so long, it feels like truth. But it's not. It's just a habit, and like all habits, it can be broken. You break it by building a new language, the language of power, of ownership, of force. That means when the voice says, "You're not ready," you act faster. When the voice says, "You're not good enough," you double down. When the voice says, "You don't belong," you take up more space, you speak louder, you show up bigger. You raise your standards so aggressively that the fear can't catch up, and eventually it stops trying. This is not arrogance. This is alignment. Arrogance is acting without proof. Alignment is acting in full acknowledgement of what you've built, of what you've sacrificed, of what you've earned. And you've earned this. You've put in the work. You've faced the fire. You've built something real. Stop minimizing it. Stop pretending you're still at the beginning when you've already crossed the line that most men never reach. Own it. Live in it. Walk with it. The only way to kill imposter syndrome is to stop making space for it. Don't manage it. Starve it. Starve it with action. Starve it with clarity. Starve it with a life so aligned with power that fear has no place left to sit. That's your new standard. No fear, no doubt, no delay. Only execution, only presence, only identity forged in fire. Ask yourself, who would you be if you never entertained the thought that you were a fraud? How would you speak? How would you move? How would you build? How would you walk into rooms if you knew deep in your bones that you belonged there? Not because someone said you did, but because your presence made it undeniable. That's the version of you you've been suppressing. That's the version you're about to unleash, and it starts now. No more small energy, no more humble lies, no more hiding behind fake preparation. You don't need more reps, you need more belief. And belief comes from standards. Set them, live by them, die by them if you have to, but never again betray them. So right now, I want you to confront the fear. Name the area of your life where imposter syndrome has lived the longest. Write it, comment it, declare it, then make your first move against it. Not a plan, a move, something loud, something real, something that makes the voice of fear realize it's not welcome anymore. And if this message pierced the part of you that's been hiding, share it. Let it be the sword that cuts through another man's silence. Let it be the fire that burns his excuses. Then, like this video, not for algorithm, for alignment. Let your click be your commitment, your line in the sand, and subscribe. Because here, we don't manage weakness, we destroy it. We don't treat fear like a pet. We bury it in the dirt of discipline. This is not just a message, this is a movement. And you are now part of it. The imposter dies today, and the real you, he finally takes the throne. You've built routines, you've written affirmations, you've tried to trick your brain into believing you're confident. But deep down, the same feeling lingers, the same voice still whispers that you're pretending, that you're just playing a role, that eventually someone will pull back the curtain and see through it all, that despite the work you've done, the results you've created, the steps you've taken, you're still not the real deal. That's the trap of imposter syndrome. It doesn't care about your success. It doesn't care about your growth. It only cares about one thing, convincing you that you are undeserving of your own life. And if you don't crush that lie now, it will bury you beneath the weight of everything you've built. The deeper you go, the louder the voice becomes. Because as you rise, so does the pressure. As you grow, so does the expectation. And if your identity hasn't caught up with your results, you'll collapse. Not from failure, but from fear. Fear that you're out of place. Fear that you're in over your head. Fear that you're not who you say you are. But let me remind you, imposter syndrome is not proof that you don't belong. It's proof that your environment is expanding faster than your self-image. And that's not a problem. That's a challenge, a call to align your inner standard with your outer results. I, Napoleon Hill, made it my life's mission to teach men that power is not about what the world sees. It's about what you see when you look in the mirror. You could have all the accolades, all the money, all the validation, and still feel small if your internal standard hasn't evolved. You're not an imposter because you're out of place. You feel like one because you haven't caught up with who you've become, and now is the moment to catch up. Not by thinking more, by acting differently. The cure for imposter syndrome is not comfort. It's challenge. You don't grow out of it. You rise above it. You do the things it tells you you're not ready for. You speak in the rooms it tells you to stay silent in. You build the projects it tells you you're not qualified for. And every time you do, you chip away at the lie. You crush the fear. You strengthen your core. And over time, you stop flinching when opportunity knocks. You open the door and say, "I've been expecting you." Because now you know who you are. But to get there, you must first confront the patterns, the behaviors, the rituals that feed the lie, the constant overchecking, the unnecessary preparation, the way you downplay compliments, the way you deflect praise, the way you avoid attention. That's not humility, that's fear masquerading as modesty. And as long as you keep feeding those habits, you'll keep feeding the voice. But you weren't made for smallness. You weren't made to hide. You weren't made to hesitate. You were made to dominate. The world doesn't need another man who doubts himself. It needs a man who knows, a man who moves, a man who doesn't apologize for his presence. And that presence doesn't come from noise. It comes from proof. Proof that you do what you say, that you finish what you start, that you live what you preach. And if you've done that, then you are not a fraud, you are a force. And the only thing left is to start acting like it. That means you stop hesitating. You stop waiting to feel ready. You stop asking for permission. You move, you decide, you own. Even when the fear is still there, especially when the fear is still there, because that fear is not your enemy. It's your alarm clock. It's the signal that you're stepping into territory that matters. And if you feel like an imposter, they're good. That means you're growing. That means you're stretching. That means you're doing something that's bigger than your comfort zone. That's not a reason to pause. That's a reason to push harder. The men who leave legacy don't feel ready. They feel responsible. Responsible to the vision, to the mission, to the standard, and that responsibility becomes their fuel. It overrides their emotion. It silences their insecurity. It anchors them in purpose. And that's what you need now. Not another win, not another trophy. Purpose, responsibility, fire. So ask yourself right now, who am I when I stop apologizing for my potential? Who am I when I stop filtering my power to make others comfortable? Who am I when I live in full alignment with my own fire? You already know the answer. You feel him, you've glimpsed him, in moments of clarity, in moments of boldness, in moments where you moved without overthinking. That version of you is not a fantasy, he's your foundation. And every time you choose to act in spite of imposter syndrome, you bring him closer, to the surface. But if you keep waiting for it to go away, you'll wait forever. It doesn't leave, It loses power, and that loss of power happens only through action. Ruthless, repetitive, relentless action. Action that ignores emotion. Action that breaks hesitation. Action that builds conviction. That's your way out. That's your breakthrough. That's your next level. So here's what I want from you now. Don't plan it, don't think about it, move. Pick the task, the decision, the opportunity you've been avoiding and do it. Loudly, powerfully, publicly, if you have to. Let the world see the moment you stop apologizing and start owning. And once you've done it, comment below. Declare your breakthrough. Mark this moment. And if this message exposed the lie you've been living under, share it. Be the reason. Another man rises. Be the fire that destroys his excuses. Then like this video. Not because it's popular, but because it was your trigger. The line you crossed. The wall you broke, and subscribe. Because here we don't cope with fear, we conquer it. We don't live by what we feel, we live by what we build. And we build with the fire of Napoleon Hill, the fire of clarity, execution, and unshakable purpose. This isn't theory, this is war, and you just won a battle. Now go win the next one. You've been walking through life with one foot on the gas and the other on the brake. You say you want to move fast. You say you want to break through. You say you're ready for more. But every time momentum starts to build, you pull back, you slow down, you sabotage. Not because you don't want it, but because deep down, a voice is still whispering that you don't deserve it, that it's too much, that you're not enough. That voice is not your intuition. It's not wisdom. It's the echo of imposter syndrome. And as long as you keep listening to it, your greatness will stay locked behind the gate of hesitation. You've tried to drown it in success. You've tried to outwork the fear. But the voice doesn't respond to results. It responds to identity. And if you don't shift the way you see yourself, you'll always shrink when pressure rises. Because success without self-worth is a time bomb. It looks good on the surface, but inside you're waiting for it to explode, waiting to lose it all, waiting to be exposed. That's not because it's true. It's because your standard hasn't caught up with your accomplishments. You've built a powerful outer life, but your inner world is still running on outdated software. And that software was never designed to handle greatness. As Napoleon Hill told you plainly, the world will give you nothing until you believe you deserve everything. And belief is not just positive thinking, it's standards, it's decisions, it's habits, it's the way you respond when doubt shows up. It's what you choose when the voice of fear starts its speech. Do you retreat? Do you play safe? Do you pretend to be smaller so you don't intimidate others? Or do you step forward? Do you speak louder? Do you stand firmer? That choice defines your destiny. Imposter syndrome is not a monster. It's a mirror. It reflects back the parts of you that you haven't owned yet. The power you've ignored, the light you've dimmed, the wins you've discredited. But you don't fix a mirror, you fix the man standing in front of it. You fix him by deciding that you are no longer available for smallness, that your gifts are not up for negotiation, that your presence will no longer be diluted to protect other people's comfort zones. Every time you doubt yourself, ask this question: what evidence do I actually have that I'm not enough? Not the feelings, not the fear, the facts. What have I done? What have I built? What have I survived? What have I overcome? Because the truth is, most of you are not struggling with ability, you're struggling with belief. And belief is built the same way a body is built, under pressure, with repetition, through resistance. You don't wait for it, you create it. And yes, you'll feel fake at first, you'll feel like you're pretending, but that's not being a fraud, that's being in transition. That's your identity catching up to your reality. Don't let that tension make you retreat. Let it make you sharper, stronger, more intentional. The man who breaks through imposter syndrome is not the one who feels the most confident. He's the one who keeps showing up anyway. He's the one who turns fear into fuel, who turns insecurity into intensity, who walks into the storm instead of away from it. You keep waiting for peace, but peace doesn't come before war. It comes after you've faced the battle, after you've silenced the voice through volume, volume of action, volume of commitment, volume of follow-through. You want to feel different, then move differently. You want to think different, then act like the man you want to become, even if you don't feel like him yet, especially when you don't feel like him. That's how the shift begins. Let's get brutally honest now. Where are you holding back? Where are you pretending not to know your power? Where are you allowing the fear of being exposed to keep you from being excellent? You already know the answers. You don't need more time. You don't need more research. You need to attack. You need to do the exact thing that fear is trying to keep you from doing. And you need to do it with violence, with finality, with the kind of conviction that doesn't ask for permission. Because confidence isn't built in comfort. It's built in conflict, in decisions made with trembling hands, in actions taken with a heart pounding in your chest, in the moments where you move before your mind has a chance to stop you. That's where strength is forged. Not in your victories, but in your response to resistance. And I promise you this, if you keep acting with discipline, the voice will fade. It will try to whisper, but you'll be too busy executing, too locked in, too focused, and eventually it won't even recognize you. Because now you've become someone it can't control. That's the goal, not to feel better, to be better, to live so fully in alignment with your power that doubt loses its relevance. That hesitation becomes a joke, that every room you walk into shifts because your presence is no longer filtered through fear. So decide right now. What have you been postponing because of imposter syndrome? What opportunity have you been downplaying? What skill have you been hiding? What room have you avoided? What identity have you delayed stepping into? Name it, write it, speak it. Then destroy it with action. Take the next bold step, the next uncomfortable decision, the next terrifying yes. And once you've moved, come back and comment. Let the world see the man who stopped pretending. Let this be your turning point. And if this message shook you, share it. Don't keep it, spread it. Let it burn the lies in another man's mind. Be the voice that says, you're not an imposter, you're just untrained. And today the training begins. Then like this video, not for me, for you, as proof that you're stepping into your next level, and subscribe. Because here, we don't run from fear. We chase it. We train under pressure. We move with the fire. Of Napoleon Hill, unapologetic, unshaken, unstoppable. You're done waiting. You're done doubting. This is the moment. The new identity, the new standard, the death of the lie, the rise of the leader. Now go live it. You've been moving with hesitation, walking with a mask, operating in silence, not because you're strategic, but because you're scared. Scared they'll see too much. Scared you'll be asked to do more. Scared that what you've built will expose what you think you lack. That's not wisdom. That's fear in uniform. That's the grip of imposter syndrome. And it's not just a mindset, it's a pattern, a cycle that feeds on silence and is fueled by low identity. The more you succeed without upgrading your belief, the deeper it grows. The louder it gets, the more it dictates what you say yes to, what you reject, how you carry yourself. That voice telling you that you're not real, not worthy, not built. For this isn't just annoying, it's destructive. And if you don't take it out now, it will eventually convince you to self-destruct everything you fought for. Imposter syndrome is not an occasional thought. It's a daily battle. It shows up when you get praised and think, if they really knew me. It whispers when you're offered opportunities and your first instinct is to say no. It creeps in every time you start to stretch, to expand, to rise. And it tells you to pull back, to stay small, to let someone else take the spotlight. That's not humility, that's insecurity, pretending to be noble. And men who want to dominate their field cannot afford to live in psychological Insecurity, because the world doesn't hand power to those who second guess. It hands power to those who seize it. The first lie imposter syndrome tells you is that you're alone, that everyone else feels solid, certain, confident, and you're the only one faking. But that's the trap. That belief isolates you, and isolation is how the voice wins, because when you don't speak about it, you think it's truth. But I, Napoleon Hill, knew that all progress starts with truth. And the truth is this: every powerful man you admire has felt it, has fought it, has stared into the mirror and wondered, am I really built for this? But the difference is, they didn't let the voice win. They moved anyway. They acted while the doubt screamed. They trained while the fear raged. They built while their mind tried to tear it all down. That's what makes them powerful. Not their absence of fear, but their ability to move through it. You don't overcome imposter syndrome by talking about it. You overcome it by attacking it. With action, with presence, with volume. The louder your action gets, the quieter the voice becomes. Because imposter syndrome feeds on passivity. The longer you wait to move, the stronger it grows. But the second you shift into motion, it starts to lose oxygen. That's the cure. Not therapy, not journaling. Execution. Relentless, focused, unapologetic execution. This isn't about self-esteem. It's about standard. You've been operating with the internal standard of a man still trying to prove himself. But that version of you is dead. He has to be, because you've already proven it. You've done the work. You've paid the price. You've survived the nights of doubt, of sweat, of silence. And if you're still carrying that insecurity, it's not because it's true. It's because you haven't accepted that you've already earned your place. But now you must, because there is no room for fraud mentality in a man with a mission. You cannot be trusted to lead, to build, to dominate if you still see yourself as a question mark. That's the war. Not just against procrastination or distraction, against the internal sabotage that tells you you're not enough. And that sabotage must be destroyed, daily, viciously, publicly if needed. You feel like a fraud? Good. That means you're in new territory. That means you're stretching. That means you're evolving. Feeling like a fraud doesn't mean you are one. It means you've outgrown your old identity and haven't built the new one yet. So build it. Not with affirmations, with decisions, with discipline, with declaration through movement. Every time you hesitate, ask yourself, who am I listening to right now? The imposter or the man I'm becoming? Because one of them will die. And the more you feed one, the more the other fades. You don't have time to feed weakness. Not now. Not with what's at stake. Look around your life. How many times have you let imposter syndrome cost you an opportunity? A moment? A connection? A breakthrough? How many times have you played smaller than you were because you feared exposure? That version of you is over. Not tomorrow. Now. You don't need to prove you belong. You need to move like you belong, walk like it, speak like it, build like it, because the truth is, the world believes in men who believe in themselves, and that belief is not based on perfection, it's based on presence. When you own the space you occupy, no one questions you, because your energy says, I am the standard, and the standard has no room for imposter syndrome, because the standard is not a feeling, it's a code. It's how you move when you're tired. It's how you execute when you're doubted. It's how you perform when you feel invisible. The code doesn't shift based on emotion. It holds, it demands, it crushes. So right now, set your code, your standard. Decide that from this moment forward, imposter syndrome dies. Not by accident, but by fire, by focus, by movement that doesn't wait for approval. Take the task you've been avoiding, the project you've delayed, the conversation you've feared, and execute, not gently, with force, with clarity, with violence. Make it undeniable. Then come back and comment what you destroyed, what voice you silenced, what part of the fraud you buried. Let this be the moment you never return to the man who doubted. And if this message burned through your hesitation, share it. Let it do for another man what it just did for you. Then like this video, not for the metrics, for your mission, as a contract, as proof that you chose to become more, and subscribe. Because here, we don't live with imposter syndrome. We kill it. We build self-trust through execution. We dominate every inch of our potential with the fire of Napoleon Hill. No more fraud, no more fear. You've earned your place. Now walk like it. Move like it. Lead like it. You've spent your entire life building your skills, building your reputation, building your path toward a future you said you wanted. But what you haven't been building is the internal certainty required to carry all of it. You've built the external empire, but the foundation inside you is still cracked by doubt. That's what imposter syndrome does. It creates a fracture in your identity. It convinces you that the man doing the work is separate from the man receiving the reward. It convinces you that you can be disciplined without feeling deserving, that you can achieve without feeling aligned. And that lie is why everything still feels fragile, like one mistake could undo everything, like one criticism could expose the truth. But here's the truth you need to hear. You are not a fraud. You are not pretending. You are simply untrained in owning your power. And that training begins today. You don't fix imposter syndrome by being more careful. You fix it by being more certain in the fact that you've earned your place, certain in the fact that your wins are not accidents, certain that what you've built cannot be taken by anyone who didn't suffer through the process. And you build that certainty through action, not any action, decisive, bold, unapologetic action that aligns with the man you want to become, because the more you act like him, the more you become him. And the more you become him, the less room there is for the voice that says you're not ready. I, Napoleon Hill, did not spend my life writing about comfort. I wrote about conquest. I wrote about the war within, the war that takes place between your ears every time you are offered more than you feel worthy of. The war that begins when the world sees your greatness and you can't see it yourself. That war is won not by thinking more, but by doing more. You don't outthink imposter syndrome. You outwork it. You silence it through patterns, repetition, dominance, daily victories that stack until your old identity no longer fits. But most men never get there, because they let the voice win. They let the voice delay the project, postpone the decision, kill the opportunity. And they say they're being smart, strategic, careful, but what they're really doing is stalling, shrinking, submitting. You don't need more humility. You need more hunger. You need a fire that says, I've earned this, I've bled for this, and I won't let a phantom voice rob me of it. Imposter syndrome thrives in hesitation. Every second you delay, it grows. Every excuse you make, it feeds on. Every opportunity you question, it wraps tighter around your throat. But the moment you act, truly act, it begins to die. That's why you must become a man of immediate execution, a man who hears the voice and moves anyway, a man who feels the doubt but still decides. That is what rewires your identity, not what you know, what you prove every day. Ask yourself, when was the last time you acted without hesitation? When was the last time you moved on a goal without second-guessing your worth? When was the last time you stood in a room and didn't feel the need to justify why you were there? That man is not a fantasy. He is real, and he's buried under years of caution and conditioned fear. But he can rise again if you're willing to let go of the lies. You've believed that certainty comes from external validation, from praise, from metrics, but that's false. Certainty comes from integrity, from doing what you say, from building the muscle of execution, so consistently that you no longer question your power, you embody it. That's the new standard. No more hoping you belong. You decide you belong, and then you prove it. Not with noise, with presence. Presence is the greatest weapon against imposter syndrome. When you are fully present, the voice has no oxygen. It lives in the past, in old mistakes, in childhood programming. It lives in the future, in what-if scenarios, in imaginary failures. But it cannot live in now, because now is where the real you lives, the focused you, the powerful you, the version that doesn't need to be convinced, only activated. So how do you activate him? By removing the gap between thought and movement. You think it, you do it. No delay, no filter, no emotional processing. That's how warriors operate. That's how kings take territory. They don't ask for confirmation. They act with conviction. And conviction is not born in emotion. It's born in decision. You decide who you are and then you walk like it, talk like it, lead like it. Every hour of every day, and you don't apologize for it, you don't explain it, you don't shrink it to make others comfortable, because your presence isn't a threat, it's a standard, it's a mirror that shows other men what's possible when you stop doubting and start dominating, and that mirror will make some people uncomfortable. Let it. You're not here to be tolerated. You're here to be undeniable. That begins now, not next week. Not when you feel ready. Now. Look at the one area where imposter syndrome still lives. Find it, expose it, attack it, take the action you've been postponing, have the conversation you've avoided, make the move you've overthought. And when you do, when you move through the fear instead of around it, come back and comment. Declare your breakthrough, and if this message snapped something in you, share it. Let it destroy the lie in another man's life. Let it remind him that feeling like a fraud is not the truth, it's the test. Then like this video, not for views, for victory. Let that click be your contract with the next level and subscribe. Because here, we don't tiptoe around our power. We train for it. We earn it, we live it, through the fire of Napoleon Hill, through presence, through pressure, through total alignment with purpose. The voice that said you don't belong is done, and the man who was silent under its weight just became a weapon. Move. You say you want to be powerful. You say you want to dominate your life, your goals, your mind, but there's still something inside of you that keeps pulling you back. It's not weakness. It's not lack of knowledge. It's not even fear in its purest form. It's something more deceptive. It's the quiet internal narrative that says you're faking it, that at any moment it's all going to collapse, that you're not who they think you are. That voice is not logic, it's not self-awareness, it's the disease of imposter syndrome. And until you kill it, you will never feel peace in your progress. You will never feel safe in your success. You will always feel like you're running while waiting to be exposed. And that's not a life, that's a mental prison. You've been trying to fix it by doing more, by achieving more, by stacking accomplishment after accomplishment, hoping that eventually the voice will go silent. But it won't, because imposter syndrome doesn't respond to success. It responds to alignment. Until you align who you are internally with what you've built externally, there will always be a disconnect. And that disconnect is the breeding ground for self-doubt. You've been playing both sides, trying to look powerful without fully owning your power. Trying to lead while still asking for permission. That contradiction is killing your identity, and it's why nothing ever feels secure. You're building, but you don't feel built. I, Napoleon Hill, made it very clear, every result begins in the mind, and every failure to hold on to success also begins in the mind. Imposter syndrome is the sabotage mechanism of an undisciplined mind. It is the psychological insecurity of a man who has forgotten his own process. You forgot the hours, you forgot the grind, you forgot the moments you didn't quit. And now you sit on the throne of your progress, doubting if it even belongs to you. That's not truth, that's amnesia, and it's time to remember. Remember who you were when no one believed in you. Remember the fire you had before the voice of doubt became loud. Remember the part of you that didn't ask for recognition. He just moved, he acted, he built. That version of you didn't feel like a fraud. He felt like a warrior. Because warriors don't wait to feel deserving. They decide they're ready and prove it in battle. And that's what you need now, not more reassurance, more war. War against the thoughts that say you're not enough. War against the patterns that say you should. Play small. War against the cycle that tells you your power must be earned again every single day. You've already paid the price. You've already bled. But you haven't claimed the crown. You're still acting like the fight isn't over. Like you still need to explain yourself. Like you're lucky to be here. You're not lucky. You're lethal. And that version of you is not a fantasy. He's just been silenced by years of mental hesitation. But today, he rises. Today, he leads. Today, he makes the final decision to stop negotiating with doubt. Imposter syndrome is not humility. It's self-rejection. And self-rejection is the most violent form of betrayal because it doesn't come from outside. It comes from within. You don't need to be betrayed by others when you're already betraying your own greatness every time you hesitate, every time you delay, every time you overthink. That ends now. Because now you act with finality. You are no longer a man in training. You are a man in command. You no longer seek validation. You create confirmation through action. You no longer analyze your worth. You demonstrate it through decisions. That is the shift. That is the new identity, and that is the only way imposter syndrome dies, by removing its oxygen. Its oxygen is your doubt, your delay, your false humility. Take those away, and the voice has nothing left to feed on. So what does that look like practically? It means you stop saying, "I'm trying." You stop saying, "I hope this works." You stop saying, "I think I can." Those are phrases of a man still asking for permission. From today forward, your language changes. I will. I decide. I execute. I dominate. That is how power speaks. That is how power moves. That is how you reclaim your identity from the hands of fear. And yes, it will feel unnatural at first, because you've trained yourself to doubt. You've trained yourself to question everything you've built. But now you retrain. Now you rewrite. Now you rebuild the neurological patterns that tell your nervous system you are safe in certainty, safe in strength, safe in claiming what you've earned. That process is painful, but it's the only one that leads to peace. Because peace does not come from success, it comes from ownership. From knowing that everything in your life is aligned, that your thoughts match your actions, that your beliefs match your behavior, that your identity matches your destiny. And when all of that is in sync, imposter syndrome has no place left to live. Ask yourself, where have you allowed doubt to make decisions for you? Where have you let self-rejection build your habits? Where have you been shrinking in moments that demanded strength? Find those places, expose them, then act immediately, boldly, violently. Take the action that you've been postponing. Say the thing you've been rehearsing in your head. Make the move you've been talking yourself out of. Let today be the day that you go all in on the man you've been pretending to be. And when you move, don't look back. Burn the bridge. Burn the story. Burn the identity of hesitation, because the only way to build power is through total commitment. You commit through movement, through presence, through pressure, through a standard that refuses to bow to fear. Comment below what you just decided. Speak it. Declare it. Let it be your proof that you've crossed the line. And if this message broke something inside you, share it. Be the spark that turns another man's self-doubt into fire. Then like this video. Not for attention, for alignment, for the moment that your identity caught up with your potential, and subscribe, because here we don't fake strength. We train it, we build it, we live it through the relentless truth of Napoleon Hill, through The war on hesitation. Through the daily discipline of becoming undeniable, the voice is done, the fear is done, the fraud is dead. Now you rise, now you lead, now you own. You've been living in disguise. Not because you're dishonest, but because you've been conditioned to survive. Survive in rooms where you don't feel worthy. Survive in roles you've already earned, but still question. Survive in environments that mirror your success while you quietly wrestle with the thought that it all might be too much, too soon, too far beyond what you think you deserve. That's not survival. That's imprisonment. That's imposter syndrome running your system, not as a visitor, but as the architect of your behavior. And every time you obey that voice, you reinforce a cage built out of false humility and internal sabotage. You've convinced yourself that playing small is safe, that lowering your voice is polite, that minimizing your victories is noble. But none of that is truth. That's just self-doubt in a tailored suit. You've mistaken fear for wisdom, insecurity for strategy. But I, Napoleon Hill, taught that true power begins when a man stops negotiating with fear, when he stops giving attention to lies dressed as logic, because imposter syndrome is not about being cautious. It's about being compromised in your ability to see who you really are, to own what you've really done, and to carry what you're really capable of. You're not unqualified. You're uncomfortable. There's a difference. Unqualified men can't do the work. You've done it. You've built. You've executed. You've proven. But you still feel the tremble because you haven't fully accepted that your current level is your new standard. You're still treating your progress like a guest pass, like you need permission to stay. But you don't. You've paid the price. You've earned the seat. And it's time you sit in it like you belong. Imposter syndrome feeds on contrast, the contrast between your outer success and your inner certainty. When your internal identity hasn't caught up with your external results, doubt rushes in to fill the space. That's why high achievers are the most at risk, because they move fast, but they don't always evolve at the same speed. The accomplishments come before the belief, and that gap becomes the battlefield. A man with momentum but no belief is like a soldier with a loaded gun and no aim. Dangerous, chaotic, inconsistent. But here's the good news. That belief can be trained. That certainty can be built. And it's not built through more trophies. It's built through presence, through discipline, through an internal vow that says, I will no longer argue with my greatness. I will no longer question what I've earned. I will no longer play down what I've been through just to seem relatable. Relatable men don't change the world. Relentless men do. And you are relentless. You just forgot. You forgot that the power you carry isn't accidental. It's intentional. It's the result of years of pressure, pain, persistence. You didn't arrive here by mistake. You didn't stumble into excellence. You chose it repeatedly, in the dark, in the silence, when no one clapped. And now that the spotlight is on, you feel exposed. But you're not exposed. You're just visible. And that visibility feels foreign because you're still wearing the identity of a man in hiding. You want to overcome imposter syndrome? Then burn the costume, burn the filter, burn the internal dialogue that says you have to earn every breath of progress. You've already earned it. The only thing left is to own it, fully, with every word, every step, every move. That ownership begins when you stop seeking comfort and start living in confrontation. Confrontation with your old self, with your survival habits, with the parts of you that still think silence equals safety. Silence is not safety. Silence is surrender. You've been quiet for too long, waiting for more proof, waiting for more validation, waiting for someone to give you permission to feel powerful. But that permission will never come, because the world only respects the man who doesn't need it, the man who walks into the room and claims it, not with arrogance, with clarity, with conviction. with presence that doesn't flinch. Let me ask you, how would your life change if you walked into every situation assuming you belong? Not wondering, not hoping, not over-analyzing, just knowing. Knowing that your preparation is enough, that your process is solid, that your value is non-negotiable. That is the posture of a leader. That is the frame of a king. That is the mindset of a man who has buried imposter syndrome and replaced it with internal authority. And how do you build that internal authority? You act before you feel ready. You speak when the voice says be quiet. You move when the fear says wait. Every time you do, you rewire your standard. You train your nervous system to obey your decision, not your doubt. And over time, that obedience becomes automatic. That confidence becomes baseline. That posture becomes your new default. But it requires aggression. You can't tiptoe out of imposter syndrome. You have to storm out. You have to declare war on every habit that keeps you passive, every thought that keeps you small, every pattern that keeps you locked in self-protection. Because the world is not waiting for a man who's almost ready. It's waiting for a man who's already moving. So what's your move? What's the one area where you've been holding back, waiting for permission? What's the opportunity you've delayed? The message you've edited? The room you've avoided? The truth you've muted? Name it. Then do it, now. Not with caution, with conviction. Let the world see the man who has nothing to hide, nothing to prove, and everything to build. Comment below what you just confronted. Say it loud, say it clear. Let this be the moment you take back full control. And if this message ripped through your hesitation, share it. Be the voice that turns another man's fear into fire. Then like this video. Not to follow a trend, to set a standard, to seal the shift, and subscribe. Because here we don't analyze power, we live it, we breathe it, we build it. Through the unstoppable discipline of Napoleon Hill, through the fire that never sleeps, through a mindset that says imposter syndrome is dead, and the real me just stepped in. You've carried this weight long enough. The weight of performing, of pretending, of producing in public while doubting in private. You've mastered the art of showing up, of delivering, of executing, all while feeling like an outsider in your own success. That feeling is not random. It's not harmless. It's the echo of imposter syndrome, drilling into your mind that no matter what you do, it's never enough. That at any moment, the truth will surface. That somehow you've tricked everyone, including yourself. But that's not truth. That's psychological warfare, and it's time you stop being a passive victim and start being a strategic assassin. That voice in your head, it's not your intuition. It's the voice of fear wearing the mask of logic. And every time you obey it, you surrender a piece of your destiny. You've been delaying your next level not because you lack the skills, not because the opportunity isn't there, but because imposter syndrome has made you allergic to visibility. It's made you believe that being seen equals being judged, that being acknowledged equals being exposed. And so you sabotage, quietly, subtly, through hesitation, through over-preparation, through the endless need to polish something that's already done. You call it perfectionism, but it's not, it's protectionism. You're trying to protect your identity from being questioned, but in doing that, you've made your progress your prison. You've wrapped chains around your talent, and now you feel stuck not because you can't move, but because you won't let yourself. I, Napoleon Hill, told you, action is the real measure of intelligence. And right now, you're proving nothing if you're not acting. The mind that hesitates is the mind that dies, slowly, painfully, because every hesitation reinforces the belief that you are not enough. And that belief, once solidified, becomes your new truth. And when that happens, no external praise can save you, no success can heal you. You could win every battle and still feel like a loser. That's the damage imposter syndrome does. It rewrites the rules of worth. It tells you that the more you win, the more pressure you have to keep proving yourself. That's a cycle designed to destroy men from the inside. But you're not just any man. You're a builder, a doer, a leader. and you don't get to live in hesitation anymore. You've done that long enough. You've lived under the shadow of fake modesty. You've carried the fake weight of underconfidence, and now that version of you dies. Not gradually, immediately, right now. Because if you don't kill him, he will kill every breakthrough waiting on the other side of your next decision. There is no room for imposter syndrome in a man of execution. You do not get to build and doubt at the same time. You don't get to rise and shrink simultaneously. You are either all in or not at all. And from this moment forward, you choose all in. You choose alignment between who you say you are and how you show up. No more internal contradiction, no more emotional loopholes, no more hiding behind complexity when simplicity demands you act now. Let's get tactical. The fastest way to destroy imposter syndrome is to violate its rules. It tells you to stay quiet, so you speak louder. It tells you to wait, so you move immediately. It tells you to shrink, so you expand in every room. You don't negotiate, you don't reason with it, you crush it. You act violently against it, with words, with posture, with action, because that's what it takes to rewire the brain, to train the nervous system that being powerful is not dangerous, that being seen is not a threat, that being fully expressed is not arrogance, it's responsibility. You have a responsibility to rise, to lead, to dominate, not just for you, but for every man watching, every man depending on your courage, every generation waiting on your breakthrough, because whether you like it or not, your standard becomes someone else's permission. Your fire becomes someone else's fuel. Your courage becomes someone else's call to arms. But none of that happens if you keep doubting in silence. So speak, act, move, build. Let the world see the real you, the one who's been buried under layers of false modesty and self-doubt. Let the world feel what it's like when a man finally stops pretending he's not powerful. Let them see the man who no longer whispers his truth but roars it. And yes, it will be uncomfortable. You'll feel tension, you'll feel resistance. But understand this, those feelings are not warnings, they're signals. They're signs that you're finally stepping into the territory you've been avoiding. And that territory is sacred. That territory is where confidence is born, not in success, but in alignment, in choosing to move while the doubt screams, in choosing to lead when fear says wait. That's where your edge is sharpened. That's where you rise. So stop asking for validation. Stop waiting for signs. Stop measuring your value based on how safe you feel. Safety is not the goal. Fire is. Power is. Truth is. And the truth is, you've outgrown the voice of fear. You just haven't outlived it yet, but you will. And it starts now. Look at your life. Where has imposter syndrome been making decisions for you? What rooms have you avoided? What opportunities have you turned down? What conversations have you stayed silent in? That's where your war is. That's where you fight. That's where you kill the voice once and for all. Move now. Make the decision. Take the action. Don't wait. Don't explain. Don't ask. Just go. And when you do, comment. Declare what you did. Let this be the moment your hesitation ended, and if this message cracked your shell, share it. Let another man hear the sound of truth hitting bone. Then, like this video, not as habit, as hammer, as the strike that broke the old frame, and subscribe. Because here we don't play with power, we own it, we walk in it. We forge it through the words of Napoleon Hill, through the fire of truth, and through the war against imposter syndrome. You are not a fraud. You are not a mistake. You are the fire they didn't see coming. Now go prove it. You've spent too long living in fragments. A piece of you moves forward while another holds back. A piece of you speaks, but another edits the truth. A piece of you wins, while another whispers you didn't earn it. That fragmentation is not natural. It is trained, it is reinforced, and its name is imposter syndrome. You've been taught to question yourself even when you're right, to shrink yourself even when you're needed, to delay your fire because others aren't ready for the heat. And the result You've built a life of partial power, a life where you show up but not all the way, a life where you move but not with full force, a life where you lead but always wondering when someone will tap you on the shoulder and say, "Your time is up." That's not leadership. That's fear in disguise. And it ends here because you've heard the truth. You've seen the pattern. You've tasted the pain of doubting your own greatness. And now you have a decision to make. You either continue to carry this lie and let it define every room you enter, or you bury it. Right now, right here, under the weight of your decision to be fully you. No more hesitation, no more downplaying, no more muting your mission. You don't need more proof, you don't need more permission. You need to remember who the hell you are. I, Napoleon Hill, wrote for the man who was ready to break free, ready to stop waiting for confidence and start creating it. Because confidence is not a feeling, it's a practice. It's a standard. It's the result of acting in full alignment with truth, even when fear is loud. And your truth is simple. You are not here to blend in. You're not here to hope someone notices you. You are here to build something that cannot be ignored. Something so real, so loud, so effective, that the voice of imposter syndrome is drowned out by the roar of your results. But that roar doesn't come from talk. It comes from discipline, from doing the hard thing when your brain says hide, from choosing movement over mood, from being the man who builds while others second guess. That's the kind of man who leaves legacy, not the one who knows the most, but the one who decides the fastest, the one who acts before fear can explain all the reasons not to. And this is the moment where that man is forged. Not in some future season, now. Because the future doesn't give you certainty, action does, identity does, repetition does. And if you keep waiting to feel ready, you will die with your work still inside you. You don't wait to be chosen. You show up and choose yourself. You move like you belong. You speak like you've already won. You build like the outcome is inevitable, and the more you do that, the quieter the voice gets, not because it goes away, but because it knows you're no longer listening. You're listening to something else. Now, a different frequency. The voice of certainty, of alignment, of execution. That voice doesn't scream, it commands, it leads, it builds silently. And when it speaks, the room shifts. Because men who operate from that level don't seek validation. They are the validation. Their presence is proof. Their energy is authority. And you've already shown flashes of that. But now it becomes permanent. Because from this moment forward, you no longer question your power. You no longer justify your success. You no longer apologize for your presence. You no longer ask, "Am I ready?" You say, "I'm already moving." And when the world tries to place you back into that old box, you don't explain. You break the box because you don't belong in containers. You belong in command. This is where the transformation becomes permanent. Not just in behavior, in belief, in identity. You no longer carry imposter syndrome. You carry fire. And that fire speaks louder than any fear ever could. It shows up in how you think, how you walk, how you close, how you lead, how you decide. That fire is not created, it's uncovered. And today you've uncovered it. Now you keep it alive through action, so decide that you will no longer rehearse weakness in your mind. Decide that you will no longer delay greatness because of invisible opinions. Decide that you will no longer treat your power like it's a problem to be solved. It's not a problem. It's the solution. The world doesn't need more humble hesitators. It needs bold builders, decisive leaders, unshakable men who know who they are because they've trained for it. You've trained, you've suffered, you've survived, and now you dominate. You act with fire, you speak with force, you live with a code. And that code says, I don't flinch, I don't fake, I don't fold. Not because I never feel fear, but because I refuse to obey it. So speak your next decision. Comment below and declare it. What action are you taking now? What fear are you silencing? What lie are you burying? And if this message lit a fire in you, share it. Send it to another man who's tired of pretending. Be the push that pulls him out of silence. Then like this video. Let that click be the moment your hesitation died, and subscribe. Because here, we don't wait to feel ready. We train to be ready. We rise with the fire of Napoleon Hill. We dominate. With presence, precision, and purpose. Imposter syndrome is dead. The king has returned, and now he builds.